Greetings, brothers and sisters, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this second part of the video in which I will share with you the 3 reasons which strongly suggest that the countdown to the destruction of the people who now live on this earth began on Saturday, November 12th, 2022. History tells us that Roman soldiers who were under the command of a general named Vespasian proclaimed him emperor on July 1st, 69 AD. At that time, Vespasian was engaged in a campaign to quell an uprising that had occurred in the Roman province of Judea. By then, he had successfully subdued all of the countryside of Judea and was poised for a final assault on the city of Jerusalem. However, he had paused that assault, awaiting the outcome of a power struggle that was then going on in Rome. And so when his soldiers proclaimed him emperor, Vespasian turned over the task of vanquishing Jerusalem to his son Titus. Titus then traveled to Jerusalem and laid siege to it, intentionally beginning that siege on the 10th day of the first Hebrew month, at a time when a large number of people had traveled in from the countryside for the purpose of observing the Passover. Titus chose that day because the large number of people that he trapped in Jerusalem would ensure that the supply of food within Jerusalem would quickly run out, thereby making it easier to defeat Jerusalem. Historians date the siege of Jerusalem, or the beginning of the siege of Jerusalem, to about April 14th of 70 AD. They do that because they believe that that was the date of the first Passover observance after Vespasian was proclaimed emperor. And yet the narration of the siege of Jerusalem by the Jewish historian Josephus in his book War of the Jews, which you can read for free at the link which I've included in the description box below, suggests that the siege of Jerusalem began a relatively short time after Vespasian was proclaimed emperor. This belief by historians is based on the assumption that the Israelites back then used the calendar which today is called the Jewish or the Hebrew calendar to schedule their religious observances, including the Passover. That assumption is incorrect. The truth is that the first Passover following Vespasian's proclamation to be emperor was observed only 4 weeks later, on July 28th, 69 AD. That was the 14th day of the first month in the year that began on July 15th, 69 AD. The date of the day that is exactly 40 jubilees from the start of that year is Saturday, November 12, 2022. You might also notice that the date of the day that is exactly 80 jubilees or twice 40 jubilees before the first day of the year in which Jerusalem was besieged and subsequently destroyed is December 14th, 3839 BC. You will remember from the first part of this video that that is the date of the 4th day in the week in which our first father Adam was created. You might also notice that the date of the day that is 40 years before that, the first day in the year in which Jerusalem was besieged and subsequently destroyed, is September 3rd, 29 AD. That is just 2 weeks to the end of the 15th year of Tiberius Caesar. And you might remember that it is in the 15th year of Tiberius Caesar that John the Baptist began his ministry, suggesting the possibility that perhaps he actually baptized Yahushua of Nazareth 40 years before the start of the year in which Jerusalem was besieged and subsequently destroyed. The number 40 is very significant in the writings of the ancient Israelites. Adam was not moved into the Garden of Eden until he had completed 40 days in the land of his creation. Hawa was likewise not moved into the Garden of Eden until she had completed twice 40 days in the land of her creation. The waters of the flood poured over the earth for 40 days and 40 nights. Moses spent 40 days and 40 nights in the mountain where our Creator had summoned him to. The Israelites wandered in the wilderness 40 years. The men that Moses sent to spy out the land of Canaan spent 40 days doing so. Elijah, when he was fleeing from King Ahab, traveled 40 days and 40 nights to Mount Horeb. Jonah, when he warned Nineveh about a coming destruction, said that that destruction would come upon them after 40 days. Yahushua of Nazareth spent 40 days in the wilderness, being tempted by Satan, and appeared to his disciples over a 40-day period following his resurrection. And so when it turns out that the date of the year in which Jerusalem was besieged and subsequently destroyed is exactly 40 Jubilees from Saturday, November 12, 2022, then a reasonably thinking person might believe that this is no coincidence at all, especially given that November 12, 2022, as I have indicated in part 1 of this video, is exactly 120 years to the beginning of the 7th millennium. That is the first reason. And the second reason is this. The book of Jubilees indicates that the Israelites left Egypt in the 9th year of the 50th Jubilee. They spent the balance of 40 years in that Jubilee wandering in the wilderness, and therefore they entered Canaan, or they entered the promised land at the beginning of the 51st Jubilee. The first day in that Jubilee is Saturday, July 26th, 1397 BC. The date of the day that is exactly 70 Jubilees from that first day of the 51st Jubilee is Saturday, November 12, 2022. That is the same date that is exactly 120 years to the beginning of the 7th millennium, and also the date that is exactly 40 Jubilees from the start of the year in which Jerusalem was besieged and subsequently destroyed. The number 70, like the number 40, is also very significant in the writings of the ancient Israelites. Our Creator instructed Moses to appoint 70 elders to help him with administering the nation of Israel while they were in the wilderness. The sons of Elohim who went into the daughters of men are confined and were confined under the earth for a period of 70 generations. We can read about that in the book of Jubilees. Jeremiah prophesied that the Israelites would be in the Babylonian captivity for 70 years. The angel Gabriel told the prophet Daniel that 70 weeks had been appointed for his people for various reasons. Yahushua of Nazareth appointed 70 of his disciples to go and preach the kingdom of Elohim. And so when it turns out that the date of the day that is exactly 70 Jubilees since the Israelites entered the promised land is the same date that is exactly 120 years to the beginning of the 7th millennium, a reasonably thinking person might conclude that this is no coincidence at all, but rather the unfolding of a carefully laid out plan. That is the second reason. The third reason is that King David appointed 24 priestly families to serve for 1 week each in the temple in succession, following a specified order. The order in which those families were to serve in the temple is recorded in the book of 1 Chronicles chapter 24. By that arrangement, a given family would get to serve in the temple in the same week of the year once every 6 years. And the family that serves in the first week of a jubilee would next serve in the first week of a jubilee after 6 jubilees. That is a period of 294 years. By projecting backwards, it is possible to find the family that would have served in the first week of the first jubilee, which is also the week in which our first father Adam was created. That family would serve, the 6th jubilee cycle, or the 295-year cycle, in which that family serves in the first week of a jubilee for the 20th time, ends at the completion of 294 times 20 years, which is 5,880 years. 5,880 years is exactly 120 years before the start of the 7th millennium. The date of the first week in the next 6 jubilee cycle, the dates of the first week in the next 6 jubilee cycles is November 9th to November 15th, 2022. And the 4th day of that week is November 12th, 2022. And so one might conclude that this again is further indication that that date is no ordinary date. And so I don't know about you, my brothers and sisters, but as for me, I am persuaded and fully convinced that the countdown to the destruction of the people who now live on this earth has already begun, and that it began on Saturday, November 12th, 2022. Thank you very much for your time and attention, and have a great day. Bye-bye.